So the points are noted. Incidentally, on Good Morning Nigeria, we have discussed the treatment of Nigerian traders in Ghana on a number of occasions. I was just wondering, the summit duration and other activities permit any sideline interaction between our own head of state and the Ghanaian president?
If there were any side... no, this time around, no, unfortunately. Right. Because it was a one-day affair. Our president came in the morning and left later in the evening. And I think most of them also did the same. There wasn't enough time for that. But like I said, they're already talking on phone and other means of communication. And therefore, we're talking.
All right. Thank you very much. Paul, sorry, we paused you for a very long time, so we're releasing the pause button now from where you stopped in terms of your evaluation of the conclusions of the summit.
Well, already, let me play the the moderator between the private sector and then government here. The Honorable Minister is spoken as a diplomat, and Dr. Ken also spoke from somebody that's, from the private sector. You can see the emotion that he brings to it. That is what a cohort of people is supposed to do, not a cohort of states or a cohort of heads of state. So part of it, let me, they have already highlighted it. Let me start from where the Honorable Minister stopped. It is the lack of, deliberate effort to deal with the issue concerning Ghana and Nigeria that had allowed it to get to fester to this level. And your question was germane. Why was it not raised? And that is where Nigeria should take a blame. I mean Nigerian, but where you have to mention issues, you have to mention issues. It's because it has not been dealt with to the level that to put an end to it. If, for instance, this level of discussion that is going on, if such had happened before, I don't think we'll be where we are. Because somebody needs to put the issue on the agenda. Nigeria didn't do that.
Will give us more historical,
into it. Yes. But we are talking about fallout from the summit.
Yes.
It was not there. That was why it was not discussed. Okay. And so that will continue. Now, he mentioned the issue of commissioners, so we don't leave it to him. That is some of the institutional malay that is, bedeviling ECOWAS that needs to be. You are looking for money. You don't spend money on, top-heavy, management. I think they need to look at that. It has been raised before, but for some reason, they went from 9 commissioners to 15. That is revenue guzzling. It doesn't add anything, and so they have to look at it again. Now, you are talking about the other issues that came out. The point about Mali, the summit gave what sounded like an ultimatum to the junta in Mali to, between now and 15th of September, to name a civilian president and a prime minister. And then they should do everything within 12 months. And I'm saying ECOWAS should make haste slowly.
Thank you.
And then listen to the people of Mali.
Thank you.
I haven't seen a reference made to, there used to be a very important and influential Malian, the former president Alpha Konaré. He headed ECOWAS. He was several times chairperson of ECOWAS Authority of States. And then he went ahead to go and head the AU. He was the first AU chairperson for so many. And for some reason, that one leader, that he served for one term. And when they asked him to, come over like Mandela, he said no. That was the kind of character of leadership that and I know he's still alive. When they are now talking about trying to solve the problem, the conflict in Mali, I think those are the type of people that ECOWAS should be engaging. Because having served as a president for that country and then headed the AU, he has something that he can bring. I'm talking about stakeholder engagement. I think that is what is required rather than ultimatum, because it will sound as if ECOWAS is talking from over the head of Malians, but instead it should engage the junta.
I'd like you to clarify that, please,
yes.
because you say you would want ECOWAS to listen to the people of Mali.
Yes.
In what way? In what context? Because allowing the military junta to even stay, within this period, is contrary to constitutional provisions of democratic governance.
But it became inevitable. Remember that ECOWAS was even negotiating through former President. In fact, he had gone to brief President Muhammadu Buhari when the military struck. It means that that engagement did not succeed. And what it means, look at the support, if you may call it, of what the takeover has brought. You saw the jubilation on the Malian street. ECOWAS was there talking about reinstatement of somebody that eventually resigned by his, it means that they are not feeling the pulse of Malians on the ground. And, well, you can say, what can they do from outside? But they need to do that often, engage with stakeholders. There's the M5, they've talked with them. The junta is now consulting with them and political parties, and then also consolidating. So they need to work with them. You can use what you call the carrot and stick. Just don't make them too comfortable. Bring pressure. But don't make a pressure that will break the pot. Give them the pressure that is enough to make them see that nobody has appetite for military regime. They belong to the barracks.
Yeah, Paul,
yes.
Ejime, let's explore some other issues further.
Yes.
The summit that's just ended in Niamey commended the mediation and conciliation efforts of former President Goodluck Jonathan. Yes. President Goodluck Jonathan took a number of flights to Bamako to meet with all the parties. And he was an external person, so to speak. And now you're saying that, okay, there are internal stakeholders. You mentioned the former president. Sometimes when you need to intercede, persons will say, let's look for a neutral person who has no interest in the power equation in the country. So that's one point. Goodluck Jonathan, Nigeria's former president, was commended for that particular purpose. Yes. And now there is also, if you like, an ideological abhorrence of military regimes on the African continent, more particularly so in West Africa. Yes. And if we had had a breach of that, it said the former President Keita decided to resign. He didn't resign voluntarily. If you placed a gun to his head and maybe the video didn't show you that there was a gun placed to his head and he resigned, could that have been voluntary? You also make the point that you have seen jubilant Malians on the streets. Well, democracies that are maturing, particularly in West Africa, would recall that when there used to be military coups, people would be jubilating on the streets until they then started seeing the adverse consequences of military rule. What's your reaction?
No, it is being able to reconcile external intervention with internal, local dynamics. That's what I'm talking about. I think ECOWAS should be commended. By the way, it's not the first time that former President Jonathan will mediate on Mali. As president, he was there from 2012, 2013 to even 2015. So he's not a stranger there. So, but what we are saying...
But he has no personal interest.
No, I'm not saying, yes. It's not against his person. What I'm talking about is those who say, he's a messenger, by the way. It is the ECOWAS strategy that I'm talking about that does not seem to be working or that needs to be recalibrated so that you do not lose relevance. Because if now you get to a situation where ECOWAS will become an anathema, will become an enemy in Mali, you don't want to see that. You must be seen to be giving with the people.
Again, I'm sorry, we're having a conversation before we bring in the other guests.
Yes.
Look, did ECOWAS, by intervening successfully in Burkina Faso, then become an enemy of the Burkinabes?
No, but what we are saying is that these people had asked, no, I'm not rationalizing, I'm not trying to you know, say
Justify
that
the action
that justify the
Your point
military.
is against the deadline that they have issued.
No, I'm saying
They
it's
should have asked them to say, okay. you
no,
know,
no, no.
release
It's not
this power when-
forever.
Yes.
I have said make haste slowly. I haven't said, you know, ask them to pack and go.
Paul,
But
make haste slowly,
Yes.
but nevertheless make haste.
Exactly.
So what is the definition of that haste?
It is, if you give somebody deadline, can we bet that that deadline of 15th September might not be realistic? That is the point we're making.
Okay, let's-
you
let's-
have to
let's-
Are we going to be, I use this word very advisedly.
Yes.
Are you therefore,
Yes.
by what you are suggesting, calling for a bet, I'm not a gambler, so I will get into that.
Okay.
Are we therefore seeking to encourage recalcitrance on the part of those who have usurped the constitutional authority in their country?
No, by no means. That is why I have said that you use carrot and stick. Carrot means you can give the carrot, but when you need now to strike, you strike. ECOWAS has suspended Mali. There are sanctions ongoing that is now will soon be having effect. These are some areas. So
Those are the stick. The carrot is due between, we give you this deadline, timeline.
No, but we have to be realistic
Let
and
me-
pragmatic.
Let's put you on hold, Paul. Dr. Okoha,
I think the fact is that
Dr. Ken, you still have an
Yes, an outstanding
question.
point.
Yes.
Do you
Kingsley
know
will not allow me.
why the Mali situation is very complex and complicated? Do you know we have between 13,000 and 15,000 UN peacekeeping forces in Mali
yes, in northern
that are
Mali.
spending over 1.1 billion US dollars
At the northern fringes.
for 1 year. France has about 5,000 troops under the Macan force, spending over 800 million. These are human and capital investments that are there. And so you can talk about sanctions, like you said. Of course, when it goes with a lot of other things, it can work. Mrs. Thatcher was against it, US was against it, but Africa, you know, I remember the Commonwealth, the foreign affairs, even, you know, Nigeria here had people contributing towards the South African Relief Fund.
Yes.
Nigeria had some other countries also had South Africans who were given scholarship. Those of them that are leading there now. That's why one is also wondering about the xenophobia. That's another issue. So it's not just mere sanctions. It has to go with substantive and effective actions. Because if you say sanctions, like you said, it's not going to have an impact on some of this. What can have impact on sanctions is the the West African Central Bank Governors Association that is based in Dakar. When they freeze the flow of resources, that is where banks in Mali will run dry, and that is when, and nobody will know what in fact, the typical Malians, I don't know who their anger will be against, whether it will be against the junta or against those who impose the sanctions. And so that is why I was asking for, you know, caution. So that is where that goes. So Mali is a complicated issue. You are not going to march in now, how many number of soldiers are you now going to bring compared to what is already there?
Paul,
Yes.
thanks a lot for your intervention.
Yes.
But you keep raising the military option, which has not even been proposed by the authority of the heads of state and government in ECOWAS. You're talking about that will be escalation of sanctions. He's still troubled. If we do get him back on, then of course we'll get a last word from him on this very interesting conversation. Once again, let's bring in the Honorable Minister of State, Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Zubairu Dada. Why Ken Okoha was taking off what he thought were some of the contentious conclusions in his own view. He referenced the fact that there are a number of elections coming up later on in the year, perhaps last quarter of this year, and 5 countries in the West African sub-region, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea, Niger, Burkina Faso, they're having their elections. But the heads of state and government also commended the fact that a number of these countries are now into their 5th or perhaps 6th cycle of elections. And we don't know that outcomes of elections, particularly national elections, have often been a precipitate factor of the breakdown of law and order, and therefore political crisis. Of course, you sat through those meetings. What was the mood in considering
that was the only panacea to ensure that there were no coups, like it happened in Mali?
Paul?
Yes, I think one would have expected, the president of Nigeria spoke, talked about this issue of third term, warning against it. And I think it is also time for peer review system to work, for African leaders to talk to themselves, because they stand in a better position to say, brother, listen, this thing you are doing is going to cause kata. Please, can you? Because they are the ones. We are not expecting UN or another country or US or European Union to now come and begin to dictate to us when we are no longer in a position to look at the issue of Mali. So I think there are instruments like the additional protocol on democracy and good governance. It has, zero tolerance for takeover of government other than through constitutional means. But at the same time, I think it is time to also talk about governance. Where those who are governing fail, what do you do? Because that is the issue. It's not about not seizing power, and because that one is there. If they fail, are you going to wait till the next cycle of election to do that? By the way, ECOWAS is doing well. Until 18th of August, most of the countries were conducting democratic system of government of one form or the other. So that is a plus, a movement away from. Remember the areas where the time where you used to have government in the bush and then another one in the city center. That has gone, and then to make sure that the military remains in the barracks. Governance must address the issues that are germane to the contract between the government and the people. One, the welfare of the people, security of life and property, human rights, and then keeping to promises. Keita said he was going to end insecurity in Mali. That was part of what he promised and never delivered. So when politicians do not deliver, do we wait until, forever? And that is what is given. I'm not encouraging.
Was it the one that was fueling the insecurity that he was unable to deliver it? We know what is happening in Mali in terms of insecurity. This is well beyond his control, and we are also suffering the consequences of what is happening in Mali and elsewhere around the Sahelian region.
Kingsley, you have spoken for me.
I didn't speak for you.
No, look at it. Hence the issue of taking. You are saying why that if he had done his best, perhaps his best would have not have been enough. Yeah. That is your conclusion. Yeah. So you are saying that even when you put somebody there,
don't forget there are also troops that were, like you
exactly
earlier that were contributed by France and others, and yet they've not been able to contribute.
Exactly. So that's what that means. There is a fundamental problem that needs to be solved.
Okay, Dr. Ken Ukoha, look at still on this issue. Coming from President Muhammadu Buhari of terrorism and violent extremism, of course, to piracy and other vices.
Titus Mondenog says the communique issued at the end of the summit should be implemented, especially resolutions on security, health, education, and others.
All right, that does it for us, Kingsley. Right. Let's quickly appreciate all our contributors. It's been an engaging discussion. Let me appreciate the Honorable Minister of State Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Zubairu Dada. Thank you very much for giving light to our discussion today. Paul Ejime is an international affairs expert consultant with ECOWAS and the EU on peace and security communications. Thank you very much for your contributions. And Dr. Ken Ukoha, President, National Association of Nigerian Traders. We do appreciate you. Of course, not forgetting the Honorable Minister of Health, who joined us via Zoom. Unfortunately, as Kingsley said, the devil got better part of the connection. and we couldn't return to him. Kingsley.
I said the demons.
The demons, okay.
All right, that does it for our conversation segment, and indeed for Good Morning Nigeria today. We appreciate you being with us. The program returns tomorrow same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, stay safe and be well. I'm Kingsley Osado.
And I'm Claire Adelabo Abdulrazak. Tomorrow promises to be an exciting edition. We'll be having the PDP candidate for the Edo governorship election. I hope you join us then.